Aubervilles, north of Paris, is a historical district for the Chinese diaspora. We are filming a Chinese national who contacted us. He says he is being threatened by the authority of his country.
Yeah, he's coming back.
At the time, we were unaware that we're about to witness a completely illegal operation organized by the Chinese embassy on French territory.
They told me to meet them in a small restaurant called La Cantine d'Amour. They told me, walk straight past a restaurant and then you turn right.
This man's name is Ling. He's 26 years old. His embassy called him in this morning, in this district of Aubervilles.
They told me I had to cooperate with the embassy. They told me they had contacts all over France and that they would find me no matter what. I'm very scared now. I think they're going to arrest me and send me back to China. It is here, in the basement, at the bottom.
Ling disappears in the basement of this Chinese restaurant, where Chinese representatives would be waiting for him. At that point, we don't know yet what will happen to him. But we have some information about this place. This building has been identified by the French police. Up until recently, it housed a clandestine Chinese police station. According to Ling, this station is still be active. Its role is to monitor the Chinese diaspora and dissidents like Ling, who has been considered an enemy of the regime since the 15th of April 2023. On that day, he happily posted a YouTube video.
Hi, my name is Ling Huashan. Xi Jinping is a dictator. He changed the constitution and turned China into a dictatorship. I've organized this special event to promote democracy in China. Taiwan is an independent country and does not belong to China. Hong Kong also yearns for its independence, freedom, and democracy. Moreover, Xinjiang is under CCP repression. Fuck you.
Fuck you. Fuck.
This video will only get 80 views, but for a country like China, it's already too much. This man is the one who informed us about Ling's case. He wants to remain anonymous, so we will call him Wu. This Chinese dissident and whistleblower in Europe is very familiar with the methods of his country's agents.
This is crazy. This is like, you see? This is like a black jail. This is crazy. The Ling is inside, I think. This is crazy.
1 hour later, Ling reappears. A few weeks earlier, according to Ling, the Chinese embassy had confiscated his passport and would only return it to him if he gets in that car.
The diplomat and another policeman at the embassy told me that if I didn't return to China, there were 10,000 ways to bring me back there, and that I better be obedient. So I just pretended to accept.
We follow the car. It's heading toward the Roissy Charles de Gaulle airport.
We cannot follow him.
Ling is escorted to the boarding gate of a flight to Canton. He is surrounded by members of a French-Chinese friendship association, Amour Coeur Unis, recognizable by their red vests. They even seem to wish him to have a good trip. Then we lose sight of him. 2 hours later, Wu receives a message. It is sent from Ling.
He doesn't want to take the blame.
Yeah. He said the embassy people forced him to go to airplane, and he said help, and then I leave.
In the departure hall, Ling finally reappears. He runs after a man who, according to him, has his passport in the pocket of his jacket.
Passport. You have his passport? Passport? You need a passport? Passport.
What is going on?
They're Chinese police officers from overseas. They're working with the Chinese embassy to deport me.
Who's from the Chinese embassy?
These two guys.
In addition to these two embassy officials, several people are present, including members of Amur Kur Yunus. Obviously embarrassed, they quickly remove their red vest, which is the symbol of their association. They claim that Ling asked them to help him leave France.
It's not my fault. He's the one who told us he wants to go to China.
Why are there so many people from the Chinese embassy? Why are there so many of you?
He's Chinese and he doesn't have a passport. He can't go to China, you see?
He doesn't have a passport.
No, he doesn't have a passport.
Ling is not budging, according to him. His passport is still in the official's pocket. Faced with all this turmoil, the embassy official leaves. Ling's forced return attempt to China just failed. French policemen and security officers witness the altercation, but they do not intervene.
Do not film.
That's because the Chinese official presented a diplomatic passport, which means that the French police can't do anything to him and has to let him go. They could not search him to see whether he had Ling's passport on him. Ling is not leaving today, but his problems are not over yet. In the morning, Ling was released by the border police. He did not recover his passport or his personal items. Supported by dissidents, he hides in a hotel room, where he tells his story in detail for the first time.
I didn't know that my video, this little revolution recorded in the toilet, would change my life as much and would have such an impact. If I had known, I wouldn't have done it. I have many regrets today.
In 2023, Ling fled to the Netherlands where he sought political asylum. At the time, he engaged and participated in several protestations against the Chinese Communist Party. On that day, he was in Berlin in Germany in front of the Chinese embassy. He then says that he has been spotted by Chinese agents who threatened him and ordered him to go to Paris in order to be deported. Ling was scared and decided to obey. When he arrived in France, Ling spent several months in the street and he ends up by being under an OQTF, an obligation to leave French territory. He then became depressed, even attempted suicide before becoming a mental patient at St. Anne.
I was told to go to the Chinese embassy, and the embassy directed me to this restaurant, La Cantine d'Amour. But it turns out that La Cantine d'Amour is actually the address of one of their police stations. There, they accused me of having anti-Chinese thoughts. They thought they can beat me in France. They know that I don't speak French, and that I won't be able to explain what's happening to the police. They're absolutely not afraid of French law.
Blows, humiliations. This is what Ling suffered of in the heart of Paris. These photos taken by his attackers were sent to his family in China to put pressure on him. For the past 10 years, Chinese clandestine police stations have been multiplying in the world, operating outside any legal framework. In the heart of our cities, they act in total illegality. A report published in 2022 by the Safeguard Defender Association lists 4 addresses in France. 2 in Paris in the 11th and 13th arrondissement, and 2 in Seine-Saint-Denis, including the one in Aubervilles. This report specifies that the Aubervilles police station was involved in persuasion to return operations, information confirmed by the French police services. We found records of one of those clandestine Chinese police stations in France. The video is from 2021 and has been broadcasted on the Chinese web. During this surreal scene on French territory, these plainclothes policemen show themselves freely. Paul Caron, expert of the Institute of Strategic Research of the military school, knows very well how they're functioning. He has been studying the Chinese intelligence services for several years.
The NGO that revealed the existence of these police stations identified just over 100 of them in just over 50 countries. The Chinese party claims that they are there to solve consular issues and help with the difficulties the Chinese could encounter while living abroad. We know that, in reality, their attributions go far beyond, since they're involved in these operations that aim to bring back the dissidents to China. They also control and monitor the enemies of China. This is part of a global strategy that the Chinese call the United Front strategy, which is to ensure that all individuals and organizations that are outside or not directly linked to the party rally to the party's view and objectives, and to ensure that what is said about China and the party is only positive.
The Chinese authority wasn't impressed by the airport incident. Ling is still hiding in different hotels. However, his phone is bombarded with messages. A policeman from Canton, China is talking to him, and he doesn't sugarcoat his words.
He told me, Ling, you come back home to turn yourself in. This is your last chance. You're going back to China soon, aren't you? If you don't, tomorrow your big brother and aunt will both go to prison. I told him that I don't want to go back to China and that he shouldn't threaten me. But he responded, we know people who can find you.
Ling's family in China is called upon to convince him to return. They forward the messages they receive from the MPS. The MPS is the Ministry of Public Security, the equivalent of the FBI in China.
That's classic. By putting pressure on the family, they hope to attain a behavior much more in line with what the party says. Moreover, the MPs have always used intermediaries, people who are also members of the diasporas, and who will be asked by the MPs to intervene to exert pressure on these individuals because they refuse to obey the directives of the party.
We obtained the letter sent by the Chinese authority to Ling's family. It states that the embassy considers Ling to be a dissident and that they asked some help to a partner association, Amour Coeur Eunice, to convince him to return. We contacted the association Amour Cœur Unis. It is located in this building in Aubervilles. They agreed to see us, even though at the last minute they refused to let us to film. What we want to know is their connection to Ling.
When did you first see him?
He needed help. He told us that he wanted to go back to China. He just wanted help.
Just to be clear, the embassy is the one calling you to say, look after him, he's hungry.
If he's hungry, we feed him. That's all they said.
So the embassy doesn't tell you anything about his personal situation.
He told me that he would like to go back to China, and he is afraid that he will get into trouble in China. We talked about the issue face to face. We're working to help him. If he thinks that going to China will cause him issues, it's up to him to decide. If he doesn't want to return to China, he is free. We don't work with the embassy.
We show them the famous letter sent by the embassy.
We have never seen this letter.
They say they don't work with the Chinese embassy. Yet in these photos, we see the man from the Chinese embassy present at the airport that day with the members of the association. We asked the embassy about its role in this repatriation attempt. Here's their response by email. Meanwhile, the pressure on Ling is increasing. The interlocutor also asked him to write a text in French, explaining that everything is false and that he no longer wishes to appear on television. Ling refused to do so. We are trying to call the Chinese phone number that has been harassing Ling for several days.
Hello?
Hello, this is the police station. What can I do for you?
Can I talk to Ling Jian?
We don't have anyone by that name here. Who are you?
I am a friend of Huazan. I don't know if you see who he is.
What is your question?
My friend has received calls from you and I would like to know why. Because he seems to be scared. He asked me to call you to ask why you are calling him.
I can't tell you. It's classified.
In total, within a few days, Ling will receive about 30 calls and 100 threatening messages. How to explain such freedom of action from the Chinese police on French territory?
A factor that can come into play is the feeling of impunity, because that there have already been cases of this type, often ad hoc, without this resulting in any sanction from the countries. The fact that French journalists do reports and articles on the activities of the MPs abroad is positive. It shows that we are active and effective. The Chinese citizen living abroad and reading this will still remain careful, because even if what is done is exposed, the Chinese are still able to act freely on French territory. That's why they have no reason to change their methods.
We asked the Minister of the Interior. He didn't want to comment. For Ling, the forced return didn't go as planned by Beijing. After all this, Ling decided to sue persons unknown for attempted abduction. In China, images of people convinced or forced to return from abroad are regularly broadcast in the media. In the past 10 years, 12,000 people have been brought back to China. The scenario is always the same: arrest, filmed confession, and detention.